Hey guys, and welcome back to Grayson's Bookmark. Here I make all types of writing content, and today I have 6 recent reads to talk about, so let's do it! Let's go! I read these between the end of March to now. I think I read 9 books, but I'm only talking about 6 of them. Actually, I can confirm that. Yes, 9. The first book I want to talk about is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Now, this book is very popular a few years ago and is probably still popular right now. It was a very visual novel. It's very pretty to read, but sometimes I was so lost in the visual description that I had no idea what was going on in the plot. Characters could be outside and then suddenly the author was describing the outside and I forgot what the characters were doing, and it was there was a lot of visual description. Lots of black and white things, as is the color scheme of the circus. And the very first chapter opens with, oh gosh, I think it's the circus appears at night. And certain chapters of the book are told in second person referral, which is a tense I like. Like you walk up to the gates and you see the letters and that tense. The main conflict is between 2 characters, Celia and Marco, and they are forced into this competition by their, I want to say mentors, although Celia's father is the one who takes her into the competition. And I had no idea this was going to be a romance. It completely blindsided me. The main conflict is between Celia and Marco, and when I realized it was a romance, I was like, oh, I've stepped into a romance! There are other main characters in the book, and they are sometimes given their own chapters, and I liked that. Similar to if you've read Carry On, and like Penny is a small perspective in that book, it is similar to that mixing of character perspective chapters. This book was definitely a slower pace than I was used to, but it didn't grab me as much as I was expecting. I don't need to read it again. That's basically how I feel about it. Next, I listened to, oh my god, I forgot to totally mention that this is that The Night Circus was narrated by Jim Dale. I mentioned this fact in my very first video after my channel trailer. You can watch that video to listen to my Jim Dale impression. And if you don't know, Jim Dale is a narrator of the Harry Potter books, at least for the American copy. Reading The Night Circus with Jim Dale's voice is a bit trippy. Some of the characters' voices he does for The Night Circus are similar to the ones from Harry Potter, but after the first few hours, I didn't find myself distracted by it as much. Now we can move on. Okay, the next book I read was The House in the Cerulean Sea, and this book was, it was so, like, if that is clear. There's a gay romance, like, and the main character, he's just, what's his name? Linus. The first 2.5 hours, nothing happens. I think it could have been like 1.5 hours of that setting beforehand. It was in large contrast to the vibrancy of the rest of the book, so I understand why it was there. But it was just a lot of, when is like the plot I was promised? When is the orphanage? When is the fun magical place? But it does get there eventually. And at first I hated the voice the narrator used for Linus. Almost dull and like monotone, but it makes a lot of sense when you compare it to the vibrancy of the other voices in the story. Like, oh my god, there's whoever is driving their motorcycle, could you just, oh my bad, it was a truck. So some of the voices in this book, like there is a like California surfer dude who owns a record store, and like his voice was cracking me up. I highly recommend this audiobook. Like, you need to listen to it. Even if you've already read the book, it added so much for me, and like the voice actor was incredibly talented. Like, he narrates like 6 children differently, and he does the voice of a magical creature. It's a really, really fun audiobook. Very good listening experience. I would highly recommend it. I didn't even mention the plot. So, Linus is a caseworker for orphanages, and he works in a big city where it is raining all the time. He's assigned to this remote orphanage with a suspicious caregiver, and Linus is sent to make a report about the children living there and the head of the orphanage, who is named Arthur Pendragon. So many good voices and characters. 6 children are so unique and fun to listen to. I think my favorite personality-wise was Talia. She is a garden gnome, and there are 6 kids. Talia the garden gnome, oh gosh, I'm sorry I can't remember all their names, but there's a wyvern, what is described as an amorphous green blob who wants to be a bellhop, and a sprite or a nymph. That's 4. Are there 6? Yes, a were Pomeranian who's very shy and the Antichrist. But we later learn that that is an offensive term. I would 100% read this book again. It was very, very good. 5 stars, and I hardly ever give books 5 stars. This book speaks a lot about, like, I would say racism, but in a sense of like magical beings and humans. It speaks very powerfully about social issues and discrimination, and I think you should read it. Good luck if you're gonna get it from a library though, because there's a 6-month wait list. At least for my library. You might have the funds to just buy it. You should do that if you have money. Later I read Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This is a reread. I'd say it's a classic YA, circa 2015. I reread this for the court fantasy I was writing for Camp NaNoWriMo. I will put that playlist in the description if you'd like to check it out. I learned some good things from it and realized the tropes that I was relying on in my own story, so that was a good lesson. This book does lots of interesting things with technology and magical powers, although it's not called magic. It's worth reading if you haven't read it yet. The story begins with Mare, who lives in, I think it's called the Sticks, which is basically the slums, and through some really well-crafted and messy events in the beginning, she ends up revealing a power that she has and is forced into the palace court or face death, and she has to blend in or die. I have read some of the other books in this series, and it goes in wild directions. The first one is good. That's all I have to say about that. A little more recently, I read History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera. And oh my god, if you are not in the mood to be sad, maybe don't read this. Again, if you are not in the mood to be sad, do not read this. But if you are, then good. I sure was sad when I read this. It's just, everything hits, like it's just, like the images, the emotion, and like the way the author has made me feel the things. It's just, like it's the good kind of sad. But yeah, if you're not into that, don't read it. But if you are, highly recommend. The plot is Griffin's ex-boyfriend Theo has just died from a drowning accident, and the book is split into events of today and events of history. And so in the today part, Griffin is going to Theo's funeral, and Theo's last boyfriend, Jackson, shows up. And that is where like the rest of the current plot starts. The history chapters are between Griffin and Theo, and they are interwoven with the stories in the present and the today chapters. Mild spoilers. Maybe it's because I'm not gay, but there were twists and turns in the romance arc that I was not expecting and completely took me by surprise. And like Griffin like messes up. He messes up so hard. Like falls on his face mess up. And he's just, you just feel for him so much. And he's been through so much, and it's not sad all the way through. Something I did feel a little weird about was that the chapter where Griffin and Theo broke up, like when Theo left to go to California for his like college, was the penultimate chapter. It was the chapter before the last one, and it felt like weird placement to me. I felt like that should have been around the 75% mark instead of the 98% mark. This book is messy and it's sad and it's powerful. I mainly started reading this book because I was worried it was too similar to Seaside, which is the project I did before Camp NaNoWriMo and I'm working on editing right now. I will also put that playlist in the description if you want to see it. So anyway, but when I started reading it, I was relieved, and also like it made me want to work on my book even more, want to work even harder, make my book just as good as this one. Although it certainly does not have the same plot, it has similar elements. I was worried the author had beat me to the punch, but thank God. Glad I can continue working on my project. Okay, another audiobook. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. If you watched my March video where I talked about all the books I read in March, you'll know that I mentioned wanting to read this, and you know, if I have to say that I really wish these people weren't leaf blowing right now. If you would so kindly pretend like you can't hear a leaf blower, that would be great. And if you're like, what leaf blower? You're doing it right. So yes, I read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and I found it much better than the previous Matt Haig book I read, The Dead Fathers Club. I didn't like that one very much. This one I liked a lot better. I can understand why it was on the bestseller list for so long. Like, it is a general feel good, like, it's like a book everyone's mom would like. And my mom's actually currently on the waiting list, and I got to read it before her, so suck it, mom. Suck it, mom. So Nora Seed is a woman in her mid-30s, and she has a horrible, awful day. Like, just things one after the other just stack on top of each other. And at the end of the day, when she chooses to die, as the book puts it, she wakes up and is in the Midnight Library, which is a library full of all the books for possible lives. And the book plays with the alternate universe theory that, like, when you make certain decisions, other lives of yours kind of like branch off. Nora gets to pick other books and other lives to explore so she can have another chance to live. And she does have a lot of them. And I feel like there is some kind of thing I gained from like, oh, now I can picture me being all these different things just like Nora is getting to for the first time. You also understand how disorienting that would be to just walk into your life as you are now, but it's not your life, but everyone else is like, Grayson, like, what do you mean you don't remember, John? What do you mean you don't remember what you prepared for your speech? The book was fine for me. It explores regret and consequences. And a cheesy thing happens in the end that I had a feeling was going to happen, which is fine, which is probably the satisfaction that everybody wants. The problem for me that I had was like there wasn't enough stakes. When Nora's in the Midnight Library, she's told that she will die if she doesn't find a good life to live. She's told like as long as the Midnight Library stays at midnight, she will still have the opportunity. But like there's always the threat, or like the threat of like death coming to get her. It doesn't seem dire enough. I think if there was more danger and more tension, it would have been more exciting for me. The book was almost a thought experiment, but each life that Nora gets to try is very well done. If I had to rate it, I would give it 4 stars, although I didn't formally do that. And a book I literally just finished is To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. Let me take out the receipt. Now, if you've been following me for a while, like, you'll know that I've been trying to read this book since last September. It is the book that inspired Seaside, and I finally finished it literally 30 minutes ago. If you asked me, just casually asked me, Grayson, what's the plot of this book? I honestly couldn't tell you. And that's because there is none. What this book is it's a bunch of characters who do not live in a lighthouse. That was my mistake. Because I kept imagining them living in a lighthouse. Because I wanted so bad for there to be more lighthouse. Anyway, I'm getting off track. I'll get to the lighthouse. Virginia Woolf's writing in this book is very stream of consciousness, very like head hoppy. For example, one character could be sitting in a chair and another character enters the room and suddenly we hop to that character's thinking, and then these two characters like have a mind conversation somehow. It's even worse if these two characters use the same pronouns because it's just a bunch of he all over the place. But yes, it's a lot of nothing and a lot of social thinking and situations like, will they marry? How will I entertain people? What is the point of life? What is the point of writing a novel? Will I ever be famous and successful? Like, stuff like that. And if you don't like that, if that sounds nauseating and jarring to you, then don't read it. I like the beginning of the book the best. And oh god, if you had to guess, like, this book is called To the Lighthouse. When did you think they get to the lighthouse? So let me break it down. This book is broken into 3 sections. The first part and longest part is called The Window. It's this long. Second part is called Time Passes. It is this long. And the third part is called The Lighthouse. And it's this long. They don't get to the lighthouse till 7 pages from the ending. And we don't even get to go in. The whole reason why I persisted with this book is so I could see what the inside of the lighthouse looked like, because I was curious. And we don't even get to see it. The book ends, and spoilers if you care, the book ends with Lily. She's an artist and she's been trying to paint this painting for like the whole last third. So we know she struggles with finding like the right things to paint and how in like the beginning of the book. And she's at her canvas, she's looking at the water, and the lighthouse disappears in the fog, and she thinks to herself, oh, they've made it. Oh, they must have made it. And then she looks back at her painting and she finishes it, and then she's like, look, it's done. The end. At that moment, I felt like Lily was a stand-in for the author herself. Like, she seemed to embody Virginia Woolf saying that my work is done. The ending specifically says, I have had my vision. And sure, if that's what Virginia Woolf wanted, then I guess it is what it is. I got into Virginia Woolf through Miss Dalloway that I read my first semester of college, and I like that one better. Probably because of, you know, there being plot in the first place. If you need plot, don't read this. If you do like plot, read Miss Dalloway. I wonder if I know where that is. It's right here. Here's my Miss Dalloway. It's also a lot shorter. I think that may have contributed. Although not much shorter. This is 236. This is 200. But yeah, so those are the 6 books I have presented. 6 of my recent reads. Please let me know in the comments if you've read any of these. I'd love to chat about them. They were The Night Circus, The House in the Cerulean Sea, Red Queen, Why Can I Not Remember? Hold on, one more time. The Night Circus, The House in the Cerulean Sea, Red Queen, History's All You Left Me, The Midnight Library, and To the Lighthouse. Nailed it! Yeah, so let me know if you read any of those. Also, comment down below. Comment down below what book you've been enjoying recently. Currently, I'm balancing The Hate U Give by Angie Thompson. And I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. Their names rhyme by coincidence. Those are all the books I read recently. I don't really know how to end this right now, other than saying I hope you have a good day. And, you know, now that the semester's over, I hope to be making more content over the summer. Stay tuned and remember to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Bye! It's really hot in here because I wore my coat. Also, this is totally not a Stranger Things costume I made. Totally not. I don't know what you're talking about. But if you spotted it, you have my infinite love.